I think the most attractive about working for the ICRC is that you deal with human beings. It's the direct contact with people. And so, we can talk about humanitarian work, about big statistics and metric tons were distributed or so many trucks went here or there. But at the end, the attractive thing is you deal with individual men, women and children who are living in very difficult circumstances. And if you do your work well, you can help them in ways that will touch them for the rest of their lives. That's the most attractive side. Yes, I started in ICRC on the 17th of November 1991. That was the training course. You have to integration course to join the ICRC. And I left on my first mission on the 8th of December 91. I went to El Salvador. And because it was the very end of the conflict, I stayed for 3 months. And then I was sent to Peru, where I spent a year. And then I continued for 2 years to Afghanistan, 93 to 95. And I then went to Bosnia and Herzegovina, where I stayed for 2.5 years. During the last phase of the war and the first period of the post-war phase in Bosnia. And then was called to the headquarters during the Kosovo conflict, where I headed the task force for Kosovo and joined the new president at that time, Mr. Kellenberger, for the first 2 years of his mandate as his personal advisor. And then in 2002 I was appointed as Director of Operations, and I have been in that position until now. So in a way it's 22 years of ICRC experience with 11 years as Director of Operations. That's my experience. I think that's probably the most difficult question of all, because in a way you stay very attached to every mission for different reasons. El Salvador and Peru because it was the very beginning of my experience. In Afghanistan I found it a very deep country, people, deeply good people, of course terribly hurt by already 15 years of war. At that time now it's 35 years of war. And I learned a great deal with the Afghan staff. Fantastic people who taught me a lot. In Bosnia and Herzegovina I was deeply shaken by the impact of the war, the ethnic cleansing, the violence between neighbors that shook that country so deeply. But also there, fantastic work together with our Bosnian colleagues who showed so much courage in all that time. And so all of these experiences somehow have changed me as a person, changed how I look at the world, and have given me the strength to deal with my current role as Director of Operations, because there have been some very challenging times as Director of Operations during the war in Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, the situation in Darfur in Sudan, but of course also all the issues we had to deal with in security of our staff. All these things, my personal experience of the field helped me a lot to cope with the pressures. I think what deeply motivates me is the idea that the ICRC is an organization that has very direct impact for people. We're not a think tank, we're not an organization that is far away and thinks about conflict and talks about it. First of all, we deal with concrete situations. Of course, many times you also fail, because like everything that human beings do, the ICRC also sometimes fails. We cannot make a difference, we cannot reach a different area, and this can be deeply upsetting. But we are an organization that does not take no for an answer. We go back. So you don't just try once, you try 7 times, 8 times, 12 times until you manage to reach. And it's also that kind of personal commitment and courage that the staff of the ICRC shows that I think is incredibly motivating. Well, as Director of Operations, I was very fortunate in 2005 to be invited for a first visit to Japan by the Foreign Ministry, which gave me the opportunity not only to start a dialogue with Japan to try and strengthen the relationships between Japan and the ICRC, also with the Japanese Red Cross, and President Konoe was at the time Vice President of the Japanese Red Cross, and gave a lot of encouragement to the ICRC to improve the relationships. But I also was at that time, I was lucky to be invited not just to Tokyo but to Hiroshima and to Kyoto. Yes, this has been a very special visit to Tokyo for many reasons, but also because it is here that I heard of the confirmation of the decision by the Secretary General of the United Nations to appoint me as the next Commissioner General of UNRWA, dealing with Palestine refugees in several countries in the Near East. And it's, of course, a great honor to take on that role. It's a deep responsibility also. And it will be a big change for me because, of course, 22 years of experience with ICRC is not something that you can just leave behind. It stays with you, and in my heart I will always feel this link to the ICRC, which has taught me so much. And therefore, it is a very unique phase. I look very much forward to the challenge of UNRWA because it also, like ICRC, deals first and foremost with human destinies, with the issue of integrity, with the issue of dignity, and the issue of respect for individuals. And so there I will feel very connected. I know I will learn many additional things, and so that is the next step that I'm contemplating. Well, the first thing to say is that it is really worth it. It is worth spending and making the effort to try and join the organization. It is worth it in human terms. It is worth it because you deal with complex issues, but you also have very early on quite significant responsibilities. One just has to be clear that it also takes a little bit of thinking about what it means to work in conflict zones, because that is something that the ICRC focuses on, and it is not for nobody, none of us was prepared to deal with that. But nothing prepares you for war. You can read about it, you can hear about it in ICRC training courses, but at the end, when you go, you also have to face the realities of that, the personal risk, but in particular, not to think that because you come from the outside, you have the answer. You will only find the answer together with colleagues that are locally there, with people that you will meet. We are not, as outsiders, the one that will solve the situation. We can help to solve certain issues in humanitarian terms. So it takes a very humble attitude to it. The better you are in listening to what is happening locally, the better you will be in your work. But it takes resolve and determination, and it takes an ability to work inside teams, and increasingly in multinational teams. So also that, it's worth reflecting about very profoundly before leaving. But I say it again, it's deeply worth it.